Hello, Synapse community. My name is Ryan Majitimer. I'm a product manager on the Azure Synapse Analytics team. Today we've got our March 2022 updates. We've got a lot of new features and improvements in notebooks, SQL, Apache Spark, and security. Let's start with SQL. Column level encryption, or CLE for Azure Synapse SQL, is now generally available. Protect sensitive information in your Synapse SQL data warehouse using column-level encryption. CLE helps you implement fine-grained protection of sensitive data within a table. With CLE, you can use different protection keys for each column, with each key having its own access permissions. Next, you can expect better performance for Create External Table as Select, commonly referred to as CTAS, and subsequent selects. Previously, the amount of data being processed and query complexity could result in low cost and the node executing the query using a serial execution plan. Serverless SQL pools now execute queries in a distributed manner, spreading workload on multiple nodes for faster execution. Each node executes a T-SQL fragment of the user-submitted query, processing a subset of data. For security updates, first, Synapse now supports Azure Active Directory, commonly referred to as AAD, only authentication. You can now use AAD authentication to centrally manage access to all Synapse resources, including SQL pools. While SQL pools in Synapse will still support the creation of local users, you can turn off this capability during or after Synapse Analytics workspace creation. For customers who do not want to manage local accounts, they can now benefit from this feature. Next, you can now raise or lower the workspace managed SQL Server dedicated SQL minimal TLS version using an API for both new Synapse workspaces or existing workspaces. Users previously using a lower client version in a new workspace can now lower the TLS version. Users who have existing workspaces now can raise the min TLS version to meet their security needs. For Spark updates, first, the Synapse Spark Common Data Model, or CDM connector, is now generally available. The Synapse Spark CDM format reader-writer enables the Spark program to read and write CDM entities in a CDM folder via Spark data frames. Second, the Synapse Spark dedicated SQL connector has been re-architected for improved performance. The new architecture eliminates redundant data movement and leverages the copy into command instead of polybase. Third, the Synapse Spark dedicated SQL pool connector now supports all 4 Spark data frame save mode choices: append, overwrite, error if exists, and ignore. And for Synapse Notebook improvements, now, in Synapse Notebooks, both standard output and exception messages are shown when a code statement fails for Python and Scala languages. Second, changing the session setting dynamically when running a notebook in a pipeline is now possible. You can pass variables from a pipeline notebook activity to the notebook configuration. Third, you can reuse your notebook sessions conveniently now without having to start new ones. Synapse Notebooks now support managing your active sessions in the Active Sessions list. You can see all the sessions in the current workspace started by you from your notebooks. Fourth, users can find Python logs within driver logs and can also set different log levels and format for better diagnostic experience. Check out the blog for our code samples. Previously, cell output was only available to a user once the code cell execution was complete. Now, users can benefit during their code diagnostic from viewing the cell output before the cell execution is completed. Now, let's dive into our demo. We just announced a new caching mechanism for Spark pools, Intelligent Cache. This lowers cost by improving performance by up to 65% for Parquet files and 50% for CSV files. So, what does this mean and how does it affect your daily life? Well, if you're going to do a query for a file or a table in your data lake, Spark then does a call to your ADLS Gen 2 storage to read your file. For subsequent queries, it does additional calls to read the files from your storage account. Not exactly ideal. Intelligent Cache simplifies this by caching the read files in your allocated cache on your Spark nodes. Whenever it goes to read a file, it checks if the file exists, and it checks the tag in storage to see if the file is stale or not. If the file is stale or doesn't exist, it does a read call to your storage account. In the case where your cache gets full, it looks for the file with the oldest last access date, and then removes it to make room for new files. Let's jump into our Synapse environment to see how it works and how to enable or disable the cache for your Apache Spark pool. Let's see how to enable Intelligent Cache in a new Spark pool. When creating a new Spark pool, browse under the Additional Settings tab to find the Intelligent Cache slider. You can move to your preferred size to enable the feature. The cache size can be adjusted based on the percentage of total disk size available for each Apache Spark pool. By default, the cache is set to be disabled, but it's easy by moving the slider bar from 0, disabled, to the desired percentage for your cache size to enable it. We reserve a minimum of 20% of available disk space for data shuffles. For shuffle-intensive workloads, you can minimize the cache size or disable the cache. We recommend starting with a 50% cache size and adjust as necessary. It's important to note that if your workload requires a lot of disk space on the local SSD for shuffle or RDD caching, then consider reducing the cache size to reduce the chance of failure due to insufficient storage. The actual size of the available storage and the cache size on each node will depend on the node family and the node size. Now, let's see how it is when we're talking about enabling or disabling cache for existing Spark pools. For existing Spark pools, browse to the scale settings of your Apache Spark pools to choose to enable by enabling the slider to a value more than 0, or disable it by moving the slider to 0. Let's talk about if you just need to change the cache size for an existing Spark pool. First, you must force a restart to the pool if it has an existing active session. If the Spark pool has an active session, then it'll show Force New Settings. Click on the checkbox and select Apply to automatically restart the session. Another great feature is that you can now enable and disable the cache within the session. Within a session, you can just run the following code in your notebook. Check out the documentation link in the blog to learn more. Well, those are our features and updates for this month. Tell us in the comments which one is your favorite. Again, my name is Ryan Majitimer. Be sure to follow me and Synapse on Twitter. Remember to subscribe to the channel to get notifications on our upcoming videos. Share this video with your friends and colleagues, and thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.